Why do some people flinch when you walk into a room, even when you haven't said a word? What if your silence reveals more about them than it does about you? And what if the loneliness you felt all along is actually a sign that you're evolving? They don't say it out loud, but you can feel it. The atmosphere shifts the moment you step into the room. Smiles grow tighter. Laughter fades. Conversations that were flowing a second ago now trail off mid-sentence. Not because you've done anything wrong, not because you're rude or overbearing, but because something about you unsettles the air. It's not visible, but it's powerful. An invisible intensity that people can't explain and can't ignore. You ask questions that go beneath the surface. You listen not just with your ears, but with your presence. You speak with clarity and intention. And when your eyes lock with someone else's, they often look away. Maybe you've been told you're too much, too intense, too serious. You think too deeply. But what if that's not a flaw? What if, like Carl Jung believed, what you carry is something far greater, a force field of psychological energy, not mystical fluff, but a real, silent strength that others can feel even when you say nothing. You see, people aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of what they see in themselves when they're around you. Their own insecurities, their hidden fears, the masks they wear just to get through the day. And when faced with someone whose energy is so raw and honest, they recoil. They step back, they whisper, they shrink. Not because you are dangerous, but because you are truthful. And truth is deeply uncomfortable for those who have lived too long pretending. Carl Jung spent a lifetime studying this phenomenon, the psychic energy that radiates from people who have confronted their own darkness and chosen to live as their authentic selves. This video reveals 13 subtle signs that your aura may be quietly overwhelming to others. Not because you are broken, but because you are rare. And in a world addicted to comfort and shallow harmony, anything rare feels like a threat. Many people think of an aura as something mystical, a glowing halo of colors that floats around your body. But Carl Jung's view was far more psychological and much more grounded. He believed that your aura isn't made of light, it's made of energy. Not the kind you can touch or measure, but the kind that stirs something in others, something primal. Your thoughts, your emotions, your unconscious self. They all shape this invisible field that radiates from you, even in silence. This energy, your aura, speaks long before your lips ever move. It's there in the way you step into a room, the subtle shift in the air, the way others glance at you with hesitation or awe. It's not something they can name. It's not something you announce, but they feel it. That quiet gravity you carry, that presence. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the unconscious transmission of the self. It's not about what you project intentionally. It's about what radiates from the parts of you that you've come to know and integrate, your shadow, your wounds, your deepest truth. These aren't the things most people show. In fact, they often spend a lifetime running from them. But the more you choose to face those hidden parts, the pain, the memories, the shadow you once feared, the more your energy begins to shift. You stop performing, you stop people-pleasing, and instead, you start to embody a presence rooted in self-awareness, emotional depth, and inner congruence. It's not loud, it doesn't ask for attention, but it speaks louder than any words could. People notice it, even if they can't explain what exactly they're sensing. They feel that you're different, that you're not moved by surface-level games, that there's something deeper behind your eyes, something they can't quite access. It shows in your gaze, the way your eyes hold unspoken stories, in the stillness of your silence, in the calm yet intense energy you bring. Carl Jung believed this type of aura, this psychological force, can trigger others without you doing anything at all. Why? Because it illuminates what they've tried so hard to keep hidden. Their fears, their insecurities, the roles they play, just to feel safe. This is why people might pull away, why they might label you as intimidating or difficult to read. Even when you're soft-spoken, gentle or kind-hearted, your energy reaches places in them their conscious mind isn't ready to visit. This, Jung taught, is a key to understanding the human psyche. We are not merely minds and bodies. We are fields of influence, living mirrors, symbols of the unconscious walking in physical form. And the more truth you live with, the stronger your aura becomes, and the harder it is for others to remain asleep in your presence. Sign number 1. People say you're too intense. Even when you're just being honest, your words seem to cut through the noise. You speak from a place that isn't rehearsed. It's not about impressing or controlling. It's about connection, truth, and clarity. But somehow, those words always seem to hit too deep, too directly. You bring truth into rooms built on illusion. You speak the things others won't. You name what others bury. And that honesty, it unsettles people. They say you're too serious, too much, too deep. But what they really mean is, you make me feel things I'm not ready to feel. Jung believed that some people are born with energy that stirs the unconscious in others. It doesn't just communicate, it activates. It brings things to the surface, things people spend years avoiding. So when you speak, it's not just sound, it's frequency, it's presence, it's soul. And for those who live on the surface of themselves, that kind of energy can feel like a threat. Your intensity is not aggression, it's not arrogance, it's emotional honesty. That's what makes people uncomfortable. It holds up a mirror without ever pointing a finger. And very few people can look into that mirror without flinching. Sign number 2. Small talk feels physically draining to you. You feel it almost immediately, the dull, mechanical rhythm of surface-level conversations. So, how's the weather? What do you do? Did you catch that show last night? It's not that you dislike people, and you're not trying to be rude. You smile, you nod, you reply politely, you do your best to play along. But deep inside, something resists. Something quietly says, this isn't real. Your inner world craves depth, meaning connection that doesn't hide behind a script. Carl Jung believed that individuals who are deeply connected to their unconscious are naturally repelled by inauthenticity. Small talk, to them, isn't just boring. It's a kind of mask, a performance that shields people from truth. So when you're in those conversations, even if you say nothing wrong, your aura sends a different message. Can we talk about something real? And that silent call to depth disrupts the unspoken social rules. It shakes the illusion that everything's fine on the surface. People feel it, even if they don't understand what they're sensing. That's why they might label you as distant, aloof, or antisocial. But the truth is simpler and far more human. Your soul is starving for something genuine, and your aura, it doesn't hide that hunger. It reveals it. Sign number 3. You attract confessions and emotional dumping. You're standing in line at a cafe, and a stranger turns to you and says, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but a friend calls you at midnight, breaking down in tears. You've heard it more times than you can count. You're like a therapist. But you never asked for this. You didn't sign up to carry the weight of others. And yet, people seem drawn to you when their world is falling apart. This is no accident. Jung believed that some people unconsciously embody the archetype of the healer, even if they're not in any healing profession. These individuals carry an energy that radiates depth, stillness, and above all, emotional safety. And when someone in pain senses that, they open up, they spill their secrets, they cry, they reveal parts of themselves they've hidden from everyone else. But here's the paradox. You rarely feel seen in return. You hold space. You listen without judgment. You carry the emotional load of others. But very few people ever ask, "How are you?" And that creates a strange kind of loneliness, one where you're surrounded by emotions, yet quietly starving for connection of your own. You give, you hold, you heal. But who does that for you? Your aura might feel like a safe haven for those in pain, yet at the same time, it can deeply unsettle people who are still running from their own darkness. This contrast creates an invisible tension, and one of the first places it shows up is in the eyes. Sign number 4. People seem to avoid eye contact with you. You walk into a room, and you can feel it. The energy changes. People shift in their seats. Some glance at you quickly, then immediately look away. Voices grow softer. Body language stiffens. It's subtle, but once you notice it, it's impossible to unsee. Some people avoid you completely, slipping into corners or pretending not to notice. Others hold your gaze for just a moment, like they're trying to read something written on your face, then look away, as if what they saw made them uncomfortable, and they say nothing. But everything about their behavior speaks. Carl Jung believed that when you've integrated the parts of yourself that others suppress, your shadow, your wounds, your truth, you become a kind of living mirror. Your presence reflects what others don't want to see in themselves. And your eye contact, that's not just a polite gesture anymore. It becomes a moment of psychic confrontation. They aren't just seeing you. They're seeing themselves through you. And if they're not ready for that kind of reflection, they flinch, they pull back, they retreat. Sometimes they even label you as intimidating, cold, or intense, even when your energy is calm, open, or even kind. But deep down, it's not about you. Your presence quietly demands honesty, not because you say it, but because your aura speaks long before your mouth does. Sign number 5. Your presence triggers strong reactions, even when you do nothing at all. You're just sitting there. Maybe at a dinner, in a waiting room, a meeting. You haven't said a word. You're just existing. And suddenly, someone reacts. They get defensive, irritated, short-tempered, or strangely cold. And you're left wondering, what just happened? Did I do something wrong? The answer, according to Jung, is no. You didn't do anything wrong. But your presence, especially if it's been shaped by deep inner work, carries an integrated energy that stirs something in the unconscious of others, especially in those who are still at war with themselves. Your presence acts like a mirror, reflecting back what others have buried: insecurities, shame, envy, unresolved pain. It all rises to the surface in your presence, not because you try to expose it, but because you no longer hide it in yourself. You don't even need to speak. Your energy speaks for you. This is the quiet, invisible power of a developed aura. You don't need to take center stage. You don't need to demand attention, because your being, your alignment, already challenges people to confront the parts of themselves they would rather avoid. When your energy reflects what others try to avoid, it can be uncomfortable. But when it disarms their false selves entirely, that's when the real tension begins. Sign number 6. You can't tolerate fake personas, and people feel it. You've never been good at pretending. The masks, the forced laughter, the overperformers who say all the right things but feel hollow inside. You pick up on it immediately. Even before your brain has time to analyze, your gut already knows. This isn't real. And that reaction? It's not judgment, it's perception. Carl Jung believed that when someone has done the work to integrate their shadow, the dark, denied, rejected aspects of themselves, they move toward what he called psychological wholeness. And that kind of inner alignment comes with an uncanny ability, the power to sense fragmentation in others. So when you're near someone who's posturing, pretending to be someone they're not, your aura doesn't stay silent. It sends a message, whether you say anything or not. Drop the act. I see you. That level of presence is confronting. Most people aren't ready for it. They may not understand what they're feeling around you, but their bodies react anyway. They get uneasy, defensive, or they simply create distance and label you as too intense. But here's the truth. You didn't expose them. You didn't shame them. You simply held an energy that didn't allow their illusion to breathe. Sign number 7. You make people second-guess themselves. It's not that you're trying to be difficult. You just think differently. You ask questions that others avoid. You challenge the rules most people follow without thought. You don't accept normal just because it's familiar. And because of that, something shifts in people when they're around you. They stumble over their words. They revise their opinions mid-sentence. They start explaining themselves when they usually wouldn't. This isn't manipulation. It's not ego. It's not you trying to play mental chess. It's the psychic weight of your clarity. Jung taught that people who embody deep self-awareness naturally become contradictions to the collective. Your inner steadiness exposes the chaos others are still carrying. Your calm presence highlights their restlessness. Your quiet confidence shines a light on their self-doubt. You don't need to debate. You don't have to prove a thing. Just being yourself is enough to destabilize false certainty. And in a world built on surface validation, that kind of truth is quietly dangerous. Sign number 8. People open up to you, then disappear. It starts the same way every time. They say, "I've never told anyone this," but they share their story, their wounds, their truth. And for a moment, the connection feels raw, honest, electric. It's like they finally feel seen. But then, just as quickly as it began, they vanish. The texts slow down. The tone shifts. The intimacy retreats. And you're left wondering, what just happened? They stop texting. They grow distant. You sense it, first in the silence, then in the space they put between you. And you're left wondering, what changed? You replay the moments. You scan for missteps. But the truth is, this emotional whiplash isn't about what you did. It's about what your presence awakened. Carl Jung called this the work of the shadow. When someone feels truly seen, not just complimented, not just liked, but deeply understood, they meet a part of themselves they've avoided for years, maybe even their whole life. Your aura didn't hurt them. It revealed them. And that kind of self-revelation can feel terrifying, especially for someone not yet ready to face their wounds, their truth, or their long-buried trauma. So, what do? They pull away. They disappear. Not because you were too much, but because the connection became too real. You didn't break anything. You simply brought the light too close to a place they've kept in darkness. Sign number 9. You intimidate people without even trying, especially those in positions of power. You walk into a room, and suddenly, something shifts. Your boss straightens up, suddenly cautious. The loud, dominant voice in the group, quieter now. People who are used to controlling the narrative. They start to stumble, and yet you've done nothing. You haven't raised your voice. You haven't challenged anyone. You've simply entered. But your energy says, without a word, I am not easily controlled. Carl Jung believed that people who have integrated their inner power, those who embody what he called the king or queen archetype, radiate a kind of quiet sovereignty. It doesn't boast, it doesn't perform, it just is. That calm authority, that grounded presence, threatens anyone whose identity is built on external dominance. For those who rely on fear, status, or manipulation to feel powerful, your energy says the one thing they don't want to hear. You don't hold power over me, and that, without you even trying, is one of the most disarming things you could ever communicate. You may notice it in how people in leadership treat you. Some will respect you more than they've respected anyone else. Others? They'll subtly resist you, challenge you, or resent you. And they might not even know why. Sign number 10. You walk into someone's life with honesty and somehow become the villain. You show up with no games. You bring sincerity, compassion, presence, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. You're just being real. And still, somehow, you become the problem in their story. They say you're arrogant, too intense, too emotional, too much. They twist your silence into judgment. They mistake your self-respect for arrogance. They see your solitude and call it rejection. But none of this is really about you. It's about projection. Carl Jung identified projection as one of the most dangerous blind spots in human relationships. It happens when people refuse to confront their own flaws, and instead, unconsciously assign them to someone else. It's not personal, it's psychological, and the deeper your presence, the more likely it is to become a mirror. People with strong, spiritually attuned auras, those who have done the work, who walk with quiet clarity, become perfect screens for other people's inner struggles. Your energy doesn't attack, it reflects. And what it reflects isn't always easy to look at. You didn't become the villain. You simply refused to play the victim, and that alone, it threatened the balance of their narrative. Sign number 11. Strangers feel drawn to you without knowing why. You're waiting in line, browsing quietly at the grocery store, sitting in an airport lounge or a hospital waiting room, and then it happens. Someone you've never met begins to speak. They bypass the small talk. They skip the weather. They launch straight into something raw, real, personal. I don't know why I'm telling you this, they say, but deep down, you do. Carl Jung believed that certain people carry what he called numinous energy. This isn't about charm or charisma. It's not the loud magnetism of a performer. It's deeper. It's the soul's gravity. People don't know why they feel safe around you. They don't know why they open up, but they do. Your presence acts like a silent spiritual lighthouse. Even if you're not religious, even if you're not searching, your aura radiates a kind of ancient stillness that calls out to the lost, the hurting, the seekers. And when they encounter you, it's as if their soul recognizes something it had forgotten to look for, something it didn't even know it needed. Sign number 12. You feel the energy of a room. Instantly, you step inside, and without a single word spoken, you know. The tension, the unspoken emotions, the carefully constructed masks. You can feel what's not being said. You pick up on the undercurrents, resentment, discomfort, anxiety, before anyone else even acknowledges it. And to others, this might seem like a sixth sense, but in truth, it's a deep psychic attunement. Jung described this gift as psychological intuition, a kind of unconscious intelligence that works beneath language and logic. You don't need a long conversation to know what's going on. You just feel it. You sense dishonesty. You feel authenticity. You don't just notice energy. You absorb it, and that ability, it's both a strength and a burden. This is the double-edged sword of being attuned to something deeper. On one hand, it grants you access to layers of human experience others barely recognize. Unspoken emotions, buried truths, invisible energy. On the other hand, it leaves you wide open to emotional overload. Your aura functions like an antenna, always scanning, always receiving. You pick up on vibrations others aren't even aware they're emitting. And if you're not conscious of it, you can easily end up carrying feelings that were never yours to begin with. Confusion, grief, fear, shame. It lingers in your energy field, weighing you down. Sign number 13. You've always felt not quite of this world, and others sense it too. There's a certain kind of loneliness you carry, not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being different, a soul-level disconnection. Since you were a child, you've felt like an outsider, not because people didn't love you, but because they didn't fully understand you. Even when surrounded by friends or family, something inside you always felt apart. It's like you were born with ancient eyes in a world obsessed with surfaces. You saw things others overlooked. You questioned what others accepted. You felt a pull, deep and quiet, towards something more meaningful, more true, more transformative. Carl Jung believed that certain individuals are born with what he called a calling from the self, a deep internal drive that nudges them toward wholeness, awakening, and spiritual evolution. These individuals rarely follow the crowd. They often live on the edges of society, asking questions no one else dares to ask. Their wisdom feels older than their years, and your aura reflects that. It carries a depth that many can't describe, a mystery that many can't explain. And when people meet you, something ancient in them stirs, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear, but almost never with indifference. You've seen it happen again and again. You walk into a space and the energy shifts. People grow tense, awkward, or strangely quiet. Some become distant, others defensive. Occasionally, even hostile. And you're left wondering, what did I do? You didn't say anything wrong. You didn't try to take up space. You were simply being yourself. But that, in itself, was the disruption. Because when your aura radiates authenticity, self-awareness, and soul-deep presence, it doesn't just enter a room, it confronts it. Your presence calls forth what others have buried. And as Jung taught, every one of us carries a shadow, a hidden side filled with the parts we've repressed, denied, or disowned. Most people spend their lives avoiding their shadow. But when someone walks in carrying wholeness, that shadow has nowhere left to hide. The ego's war against individuation, Carl Jung called this lifelong journey of becoming whole the path of individuation. It's the process of embracing both your light and your shadow, of stepping into your full, authentic self, not by avoiding your flaws, but by integrating them. But here's the hard truth. Most people never take that path. Why? Because the ego, the fragile image of who we think we are, fights it every step of the way. The ego doesn't want truth. It wants safety. It wants to stay in control. It wants to keep saying, I'm a good person. I'm normal. I'm fine just the way I am. And anyone or anything that challenges that fragile narrative is perceived not as a teacher, but as a threat. That's you. You don't threaten people because you're harsh or confrontational. You threaten them because you're evolved. Your aura reflects someone who has walked through the fire, Someone who has questioned the stories they were told, dismantled the identity they were handed, and rebuilt themselves from the inside out. And that kind of energy? It exposes the illusions of everyone still clinging to surface-level truth, not by force, but by contrast. Most people won't say, "I want to grow like that." Instead, they'll say, "You're too much." Why rare energy feels dangerous? We live in a world that praises conformity, a world that rewards loudness, likability, trendiness. Be agreeable, be fun, don't dig too deep. That's the unspoken social contract, and for the most part, it keeps people comfortable. But when someone walks in carrying silence, depth, and inner truth, that contract is shattered. You don't fit the categories. You don't play the expected roles. You don't seek applause or validation. And your very presence, calm, grounded, unshakable, asks a question that lingers in the background. What else is there? That question creates emotional dissonance, a kind of spiritual discomfort. It forces others to feel the gap between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. And that dissonance? It often turns into repulsion or judgment, because for many, it's easier to say, "You're weird," than to admit, "You're living with more clarity than I am." You are a mirror, and mirrors, they're not always welcome. The spiritual depth of your aura doesn't just make you different, it makes you unforgettable. To those who are open, your energy feels magnetic. They're drawn to your clarity, your calm, your unwavering presence. It feels like finding still water in a chaotic world. But to those who are still fragmented inside, your aura feels invasive, too clear, too real, too revealing. They don't want to be seen that deeply. They don't want to feel the confusion they've buried. They don't want to face the insecurities they've polished into performance. So they pull away. They attack. They reject. Not because you're wrong, but because you're real. Your aura is a gift, but it comes with solitude. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming that version of yourself is not a path paved with applause or approval. It's a path lined with courage, inner confrontation, and often a profound sense of loneliness. Your aura carries the full weight of your inner work. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about being whole. And wholeness is always rare, always misunderstood, always unsettling to those who haven't yet begun. But here's the truth. The more people step away, the more you step inward, toward alignment, toward truth, toward light. And the more aligned you become, the more light you radiate into a world that so desperately needs it, even if that light blinds some eyes. If you've made it this far in the video, there's something you need to hear. You are not broken. You are not too much. And you are certainly not the problem. You are rare. You feel what others try to numb. You notice what most have trained themselves to ignore. You ask the questions no one wants to answer, not to cause conflict, but because your soul is built for truth. And truth has a cost. Carl Jung believed that the path of individuation, of becoming your full, integrated self, is not a journey the masses are willing to take. It's disorienting. It's isolating. It often means walking through the world misunderstood. But here's the paradox. That very isolation is the proof of your depth, that discomfort you feel in shallow conversations, that ache you carry when you can't connect, that sense of being too intense, too quiet, or too deep. These are not flaws. These are signs that you are evolving, because when your aura expands, the world you once knew starts to feel small. You no longer fit into molds. You were never meant to. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to awaken, and awakening always brings resistance, not just from the world, but from the people closest to you. Not because they're bad, but because your energy reminds them of the healing they haven't done yet. You become the mirror they never asked for, the light they're not ready to walk toward. And yet, you shine. Carl Jung once wrote, "A lonely day is God's way of saying." He wants to spend some quality time with you. Maybe that's the point. Maybe your isolation isn't punishment. Maybe it's preparation for wisdom, for power, for the kind of clarity most people never reach. Because when your aura scares people, it's not because you're dangerous. It's because your energy speaks a language their soul recognizes, but their mind isn't ready to translate. So don't shrink, don't dim, don't apologize. Not for your sensitivity, not for your insight, not for your inner fire. You were never meant to be palatable. You were meant to be powerful. And while some may flinch in your presence, the ones who are meant for you, they'll feel seen, they'll feel safe, and they'll feel stronger when you walk into the room. Because your aura is not just energy. It's a signal, a call to truth, a reminder of what's possible when someone dares to be fully alive. So the next time someone says, "You're too much," just smile. And remember, you're not too much, you're just rare.